I'm not going to accept this kind of behavior anymore. And if it
Right.
continues, I will talk to this parent and I will not be talking to this parent until it stops. And
Oh, wow.
there's usually not going to be in a real narcissistic situation. There's usually not going to be a narcissist that's a parent that's going
Mhm.
to apologize to their child because a lot of them have this mindset. You are the child, you listen to me, doesn't matter how old you are. So
Right.
it just it depends. It can be sticky. I have
Yeah.
clients that have gone no contact at all. And that's the abused person's prerogative. They can choose to do whatever they want, especially depending on how severe the abuse might be.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tyler King. This is my co host, Karen Maldonado, and we are here with the podcast Narcissist. I'm asking for a friend. And as you know, we always want to help out our viewers and listeners that are in, toxic relationships, dealing with the narcissist. But we want to make sure that, we're doing it from a Christian perspective. So we're not bashing anyone. We want to make sure that we're uplifting our viewers and helping them through these hard and tumultuous relationships, and to help them to grow. So, Karen, we have done so many episodes, and I know that maybe there are some people that are coming in new, right? So we always want to welcome the new people. So if you're here, go ahead and welcome in the chat and let us know who you are. But we want to kind of review, because I know there's some terminology that we use that may not be familiar with everyone, especially if they're kind of new to this or discovering that, hey, this is what's happening to me. I'm in a narcissistic relationship, whether it be with a family member, someone they're married to, coworker, friend, neighbor, whoever. So what are some things that we have said that that maybe the typical person new coming into this may not know, and that we want to get them caught up to speed?
Right, right. Well, I think, we could just go over some of the recaps of
Yeah.
podcasts that we did. And
Yes.
I
Yes.
think one big one that people have, come to me about is the hoovering. The hoovering is
Mm.
like the Hoover vacuum, right? It's sucked.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a person that's trying to suck you back into their life after they've
Right.
already done some victimizing of you, and
Mm.
you know that they've been abusive emotionally, at least, if not possibly even physically, but
Right.
now they're trying to suck you back in. And so
Mhm.
they know they've lost you, they know you've kind of made a boundary, but now they're calling and they're saying, I can't live without you. They may
Right.
even be sounding desperate enough to even say, I'm going to kill myself. I mean, there's
Mm.
all kinds of tactics that will be used just so
Right.
that person can get you back under their thumb. So uh,
Right.
being careful to not allow that to happen is very important. I mean, a lot of people do get sucked back in, and to their regret.
Right.
And it sometimes is a harder situation depending on if they're married. Sometimes it's a harder situation to get the person out of the house once they're back in.
Right.
Or it may not be that kind of situation. It might just be that, the boyfriend is gone and
Mm.
the girlfriend is gone, and now they're trying to hoover you back to themselves, and they're doing everything that they can. And you might cave because you're an empathic person, and empathic
Right.
people are usually more easily hoovered than others. But
Mm.
you have to start thinking to yourself, is making this choice healthy for me?
Right.
It might be what they want, but is it really healthy for me? And has this person proven to me in the past that they could have a healthy relationship? And if you're here listening to this, then more than likely they're not. So
Right.
say, run as fast as you can and be good to yourself. Make a choice that's not for them anymore. Make a choice that's for you. Now, of course, I'm not talking about if you're married. I never tell people to get divorced.
Right.
But if it's abuse, whether it's physical or not, it's abuse. And you
Right.
separate yourself from that. You do not have to take that type of abuse. So that's one thing that's important for your new listener that you want to recognize and be careful of. And what do they do to hoover you back? It's all kinds of love bombing. What's love bombing?
Right.
doing and saying all the right things that they should have been doing and saying all along, but now they're
Right.
finally doing it. And that's what they want you to think. They're finally doing it. Oh, okay, they've changed. Okay. No, 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 no. If they've not been doing it ongoing, they're not going to do it.
Right. Yeah, it's like you have to look at the past behavior, right? So if they didn't get a revelation that this is how they were supposed to act and this is what you wanted before, why would you think just because they're doing these things, quote unquote, now that this means that this is who they are? It could be just a trap to reel you back in, which is exactly what it is. And they really, as soon as you get comfortable, let your guard down, they'll just go right back to how they were acting before. So when they hoover back, it's because it's their own self-interest. It has nothing to do with you, has nothing to do with the fact that they know they hurt you or they feel, repentant or any remorse for what they did. It's truly just about them. So Karen, what are some things that they can look out for to know, has this person really changed? Or is this person just using this as a way to bait me back? And they're just going to go back to their old ways and treating them the way that they did before.
If this person is for real and really making the changes, the positive changes, then you do not have to lift the boundary that you have created that puts you into a place of safety. What
Right.
you do is agree to date this person, see this person still, but limit it. And
Right.
if they have matured enough that they are allowing you to have control over that decision for your
Mm-hmm.
best, right? Best interest,
Right.
respecting that. And
Mm-hmm.
they allow you to now call some of the shots because they know that
Right.
you to be on, good behavior, and they prove to you that they can be on good behavior and go
Right.
along with it and not argue with you every time that you try to enforce the boundary.
Right.
Then I would say, maybe this person is not a narcissist. Maybe they're just a little emotionally immature and they just need some more growth. And
Right.
now, if we're talking about somebody in their 20s, yeah. If we're talking about somebody in their 40s and 50s and this,
Right.
mm, I mean, that, yeah, God can change people for sure.
Yeah.
But if it's been an ongoing, thing for a long time, I would be very cautious. Just be cautious.
Of course. And that's the truth. And we want to make sure we're helping our listeners out because we know that you're dealing with this. We want to hear your thoughts, share them in the comments. If you know someone that's dealing with this, please let them know, share this with them as well. So as far as with the hoovering, now the best thing to do is once you see it for what it is, you just move on. You don't try to say, well, I'm going to hope that this person's going to change. What do you recommend? Like once they figured out this is not that they are still the same person, what do you recommend their next steps are to do? Because some people get stuck there, believe it or not. Like we think the obvious answer in our minds, but sometimes it needs to just be plainly said.
Right. And I think at that point, if it's not somebody you're married to, I would say
Right.
no contact.
Good.
You just have to you just have to be strict about it. You have to be strict about it to yourself because you'll probably be because you are empathic, you probably will feel tempted to give in and think more about what they want than what you want.
Right.
But then I would say if it's a marriage situation and that person, eh, the two people are now separated in some way, I would
Right.
say keep the separation. Now, if we're talking about a marriage, then that's what you would do. You would keep the separation and tell the person until you see change take place. This is the way it's going to be, and that's indefinite. That time,
Right.
there's no time frame on that. That person
Right.
not doing the right things and still playing games, then could be 10 years and you're still married to this person, but you don't allow the you know you don't get back together because it's not healthy.
Right. Right.
They have to
Exactly.
see that you're not going to accept that kind of behavior. So, and
Absolutely.
if it's a true narcissist, they need therapy so that they can stop doing some of the things that they've been doing, and they need to gain self.
Right.
So, that's a big thing. Now, if it's a situation where it's let's say I've had clients come to me and it's one of their parents that's the narcissist.
Right. Mm, yes.
And some of the the emotional abuse is pretty severe. And so in those cases, I will say, it's up to you. Do you want to continue to, um, have a relationship with this person? And then they'll be like, no, I really don't, but my other parent wants me to.
Right.
So then you have to talk to both parents and you have to let them know, I'm not going to accept this kind of behavior anymore. And if it
Right.
continues, I will talk to this parent and I will not be talking to this parent until it stops. And
Oh, wow.
there's usually not going to be in a real narcissistic situation. There's usually not going to be a narcissist that's a parent that's going
Mhm.
to apologize to their child, because a lot of them have this mindset, you're the child, you listen to me, doesn't matter how old you are. So
Right.
it just, it depends. It can be sticky. I
Yeah.
have clients that have gone no contact at all. And, that's the abused person's prerogative. They can choose to do whatever they want, especially depending on how severe the abuse might be.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Yeah, because you have to guard your own heart, at that point, because
yeah,
those relationships can be very damaging because that is a parental figure, right? So, switching to that, I'm glad you touched on that because some people really need to know how to navigate that. What if this is a friend? A friend that you're like, you've seen some traits, toxicity, you're trying to stay away from them. Then all of a sudden you get that text or that phone call out of the blue, trying to check in. Hey, how are you? What do you do in those instances?
right, right. Um, I know of quite a few clients that have dealt with that kind of thing. Over the years, they would realize that there was toxicity, but they didn't know if it was them or if it was the other person. Like, is it me? Am I causing this? That kind of.
Right.
And but once they gain some self-awareness, the one that's being victimized, then they realize, like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not, a lot of times
Right.
it does take having another person, whether it's a coach or a counselor or a friend,
Right.
another friend that has maybe some experience with this, talking to you and giving you, shedding some light on what it is that you're accepting.
Right.
And so not being that same warm, fuzzy person to that narcissist, because that's
Mm.
bad, changing it up and being more like them. So I'll give you an example. I have one client that, well, I have several clients that have the same scenario going on where they're always very bubbly in their communication.
Mhm.
That person always very kind-hearted.
Yeah.
And the other person, is usually always talking about themselves.
Mm.
But because this other person is so giving, they're
Right.
okay with it. They're usually okay with it. But then
Right.
usually there's like a falling out. Something happens where the narcissist gets really mad because this person didn't do everything exactly the way that they wanted them to in the
Hmm.
situation. They expected something. And so they kind of get browbeat for that. And then that makes them kind of shrink back and ask, is it really that bad what I did? Is it, was I
Right.
a bad person? And they're not. And then
Right.
once they realize that it's not them, this person's just being unreasonable,
Right.
then they're a little bit more smart to it. And so now they see how they're even trying, the narcissist realizes that, they tried to give them the stonewalling, that
Right.
right, stonewall them for a while, but then it's like, oh, they're not trying to, be my friend anymore. They
Now, when you say stonewalling, make sure because they're new, so just make sure you
yeah,
explain what that is.
yeah, stonewalling is basically that person acts like a stone wall. When you say something to a stone wall, what do you get back?
Right. Nothing.
Right?
Hmm.
So that's stonewalling. And so if you are being stonewalled, I mean, if the narcissist is being stonewalled, uh, well, first stonewalling the person, and this person realizes, what, that was such a toxic relationship.
Right.
I'm better off without them.
Right.
Now this person is like, wait a minute, they're not constantly trying to text me and ask me questions and get back.
Right.
So that means I got to start working to get them back where I had
Hmm.
them, right? So,
Right.
and this person should do exactly what that person did. You can
Right.
stonewall forever. You don't have to bring them back in unless
Oh,
you
yeah.
unless you want to. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You got to decide on your own. That's the thing. because you're a person that listens well to the narcissist and does what they say, I don't want to be another person that's telling you
Right.
what to do. You have to
Right.
start practicing having your own volition and having your own power to make decisions about who you want to hang around with, who's
Right.
worthy of your friendship, and do they treat you right?
That's right. Because you're worthy of having good people. If you're a good friend, you know what I'm saying? You are worthy of having good friends as well, right?
Exactly.
So this person, think about if you've ever been ghosted. Someone, you reached out to them, they didn't respond back, they didn't text back, call back, whatever it is. That same thing that person did, it's not, I don't think it's wrong if you see that they have not changed, they're still that person, that is fine to reciprocate that same thing back, because their intentions aren't well towards you. It's all self-serving for them. They just want you for what you were giving to them, the attention, the adoration, whatever it is. But it's not really about you or that they care about you. They probably don't care about anything that's going on in your life. They just want you to support and just cater to all of their needs. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and not only will they not care about what's going on in your life, a lot of times they'll be jealous if something good is going on in your life.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You gotta notice when you have good things happen in your life and then there's like the silence, crickets, like there's no celebration of what's
Yeah.
going on with you. But then it's like, there's no response, silence, or they don't want to hear about it. And they kind of quickly turn the conversation to them.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So yeah, so what about you are in a working environment? Because we know a lot of people that these relationships and dynamics happen even in the workplace.
Yes, they
What do
do.
you do when you have a coworker that is showing these narcissistic traits? You are trying your best to be as good as you can be to keep a healthy working environment. What do you do in those instances
Okay.
when you have a toxic situation going on at work and you're trying your best to do the right thing?
Right. Well, narcissists can be very jealous people in the workplace, and
Yep.
they will oftentimes be the person that will try to place blame. They're good at blame shifting, right? So if they
Right.
do something wrong, they are happy to try to point the finger at somebody else. Um,
Right.
they're also very happy to highlight mistakes that other people make.
Right.
And but then of course downplay anything that they might do wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so with people like that, because they are coworkers, you may be forced to have a relationship with them.
Right.
But I would say be wise, watch if it's a boss and
Mm.
situation, right? Because here you are having to answer to this person.
Right.
You don't really have control in the situation. Um, I remember my husband had somebody like that as his boss, and
Mm.
um, he was very abusive and verbally
Yeah.
abusive. This is going back many years, but I remember my husband reached like he's such a calm, loving type of person.
Yeah.
Finally reached his limit,
Right.
and he started to scold this boss in front of everybody in like their
Wow.
little cubicles. My husband stormed out of the office because he wasn't going to tolerate the abuse anymore.
Right.
But what happened was because my husband, who's normally a very quiet person, became very
Right.
loud.
Yeah.
The big boss heard it, and the big boss asked everybody what was going on. And
Right.
everybody who loved my husband and did not like that guy said,
Right.
"Oh, he did it." And so that guy ended up getting demoted
Wow.
because the senior bosses knew that this was going on, but they
Right.
needed to have
No,
documentation.
yeah. Documentation,
And
they
they
needed
need to have
witnesses.
witnesses
Yeah.
so sometimes your reaction might not be so bad. But my husband
Right.
said, I shouldn't have gotten so mad. And then I said, well,
It's a
maybe,
righteous anger. I
maybe
mean, I feel like it
yeah,
was
it
in that
was.
instance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was righteous anger. He probably shouldn't have gotten as loud, maybe, but if he didn't get as loud, the other bosses wouldn't have heard it. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
but he was just so tired of it. And so yeah, so there could be, yeah, you could be in that situation. And of course it's I remember he prayed a lot. And so did the Lord allow him to get that loud because he wanted this to be exposed, possibly. I mean, it all worked out for the good. And then this person later on proved that he was not a trustworthy employee anyway. So he ended up being removed for other reasons later. So the person's character, comes out to everybody eventually. So if you're under that kind of pressure, under a boss who's narcissistic, if there's a boss over him, I mean, if he's the company owner and you're stuck with him, then you're stuck with him. But
Right.
if he has people that are over him, I mean, before you quit, I would say I would go and talk to whoever is above that person just to say, I don't know, how to handle this. It's not, and it's usually an HR situation. They might want to
Right.
take notes, about what's going on so that it's documented. And then later on, if something more happens, that person can go back and add to it. So you don't want to be stuck in a job. No money is enough to be abused at work.
Right. And it's funny that you say that because I was in a leadership meeting with my church, and they mentioned there were some people that were owners and, like the bosses in their company. And they said that a lot of times the person at the top has no idea what's really going on unless someone brings it to their attention. So I want our viewers and listeners to think, if you're dealing with a narcissistic boss, and maybe there's a boss or two over him, just don't assume that the top guy in the company, or gal, I should say, so it could be a man or a female, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't assume that they know what's going on, because they have so many moving parts and things within the company as a whole that they have to take care of. Unless you bring it to their attention, and of course do it in use the protocols, go about it the right channels that you're supposed to, they may not know. And a lot of times they want to be told. They don't like having nonsense happening in their company, because that's something they birthed. They don't want it going downhill, because there's one bad apple in there that feels like he's, the big boss when he's not.
Right.
So I hope that encourages somebody, and in helping making that decision. And there's so many layers to that. Oh my gosh. So that's with the boss. Even with the coworker, same thing, right? Same instance, you would do the same thing.
Right.
Now, I know it doesn't come up much, and we haven't touched on it much, but sometimes we live in these communities and we live in environments, and this will be the last thing. You may have a neighbor that absolutely gets under your skin. They are a they're narcissistic. They'll have the dog pooping in your yard. They'll like have cars in front of your house while they don't have any in front of theirs. They're rude. They don't, you know what I mean? It's just all the things that you could think of in being a bad neighbor that they do that just offends you. You've let them know, you've talked to them. What do you deal with a person like that that's just kind of almost playing you and making it seem like they're good, and then they kind of go back to the same old habits? What do you do? Because now you're talking about that's really close to home at that point.
Well, if you do have an HOA, you're
HOA, yep.
better off doing that through the HOA, having them send them notices. I'm thinking of my sister. You made it come back to my memory, because exactly that whole thing about the dog going to the bathroom outside and then not picking up after him.
Right.
So the upstairs neighbor, like 11 at night till 3 o'clock in the morning, there it sounds like they're marching.
Oh yeah, loud music, stomping, throwing things down. You're wondering what's going on. Is this a construction zone here?
Yeah, and they have a dog, So the dog is, obviously running after something that they're throwing across the room,
Right.
running with him. And so first few times she actually got herself dressed and went up and knocked on their door and said,
Right.
I just want you to know I have to work in the morning, and I don't know what you're doing, but it's just really loud for me downstairs.
Right.
They were like, okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It stopped for that night. And then a couple of nights later, it just started right back up again. So then she went up and she said, what am I doing wrong? I mean, I don't know what I'm doing that would make it so that you don't care that I have to sleep at this time. But you're obviously doing, and you could see that they had boots on.
Oh, wow. Oh, goodness.
You're wearing boots, you're walking really loud, your dog is running around. I could tell it's your dog that I'm hearing too. So I'm not trying to be a crabby neighbor. I just want sleep.
Right.
And so then they weren't very kind, and then she just went back to the room. And then next time that it happened, then she left a voicemail on the office phone. And in the voicemail, you could hear, like they could hear, she goes, just listen, you can hear what's happening right now. And this is what I'm dealing with a lot of nights of the week, and I'm not getting the sleep I need. And
Mhm.
they will not be renewing their lease. We will not be renewing it if we get any more calls from any tenants that are being disturbed by you. So, you do have power. You don't have to be the one that goes and takes care of it, knocks on their door. I said to her, I prefer if you don't go knocking on people's door at 3 o'clock in the morning, just for
Yeah.
your
To
safety.
be a safety, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. But those are the kinds of things that, are put there in place. Now, if you're in a situation where you're somewhere and there is no HOA and no front office that you can call,
Right.
you might have to call noise control and
Right.
do the same kind of thing,
Mhm.
letting them hear what you're hearing. And hopefully they could do something about it, send some kind of a warning. And then if they don't stop, they get fined.
Yeah, or with the dog instance, you mentioned animal control.
Absolutely.
Take pictures, videos, whatever you need to do to show and prove it. And honestly, like you mentioned before, with those type of narcissistic type people, they're just not that way with one person. They're that way with everyone. So you can probably more than likely find other people, neighbors or friends or whoever, coworkers that can pretty much be in agreement with you that this is a consistent type of way how they behave.
Yeah.
Yeah, to have something being done about it.
Yeah.
Wow. I love this. So we touched on so many things. We kind of reviewed some things that we had done in the past, giving you some terminology to help you to know what we're saying and what it means. And I hope that this has been helpful for you. So, we always want to make sure that, don't just let it end with you. If this has been helpful for you, make sure you share it with someone else. Let them know how this is benefiting your life. Or if you know someone that's in the situation, all the things we touched on, send them the video. Sometimes it's hard to articulate these things, but sending them this video, they can absorb and get what they need out of it, and then they can replay it and whatever they need to do to get from it, right? So, Karen, you've been amazing. Any last thoughts on the hoovering or anything that we talked about earlier? That way we can bring our listeners home.
Just making sure that you are taking care of what you really want, knowing what you really want, and
Yeah.
what God really wants too.
Yes.
And one thing I know is God does not want his daughters or sons to be abused.
That's right.
Making sure that you are, I'm not saying selfishness, I'm saying because you're not, obviously, if you're with a narcissist in a relationship with a narcissist, you're not a selfish person, you're an empathic person.
Right.
So I would say just focus on making sure that what you're doing isn't selfless, so selfless that you're hurting yourself for their benefit.
Oh, that's amazing. Words of wisdom right there. Well, thank you again for listening, and we want you to come back. So remember, just like, share, comment. We love those things, and just come back and tune in. We'll have some more good stuff for you. And we are Narcissists. I'm Asking for a Friend podcast. I'm Tyler King. This is Karen Maldonado. We'll look forward to seeing you on your next episode.